This is The Bar is Ankle High.
Another episode.
I'm Katie.
I am Garrett.
And our Patreon of the week is Amanda Milano. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
I hope you're caught up on the episodes.
Now we're on 13?
This is 14. Yeah, episode 14.
Episode 14.
Wild.
It is kind of wild. I found myself this morning saying something like, oh, we used this when we started. And I was like, oh my god. It's not like the beginning anymore. Like, we've kind of gotten going now.
Yeah, for sure. I was writing out in my planner, like, each week the episode numbers. Mm-hmm. And was going into next year, and I was like, oh my god, we're going to be at, like a Dysfunction Junction episode 15.
Wow.
At some point. Yeah. And I was
this is
like,
so wild.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, oh my god, like 15 Patreon episodes compared to like twice as many regular episodes. And like, it was just like one of those things where I was like, holy crap, like,
that's wild.
We're doing it, man.
We're really doing it.
But yeah, it was just a wild thing that I was like, okay, we are. The psychic was right.
Turns out. So if you're new to the podcast, welcome if this is a new episode for you.
Yeah.
If not, definitely go back and listen because we're delightful.
Yeah, for sure. I would say probably, yeah. I would say like episode 4 on, we like especially hit our groove. I feel like.
Oh yeah, I mean, as with any brand new project, the first ones were a little rough, but really not bad. I mean, when I think back, like, not
really
bad,
not bad. The sound was a little bit off on
we
my
worked out
end,
some kinks.
Oh
sorry for that. I'm sorry. I'm immediately sorry.
You were in a really perverted mood today.
I'm sorry. I've just been making so many.
Garrett has.
And last week, I was on the shtick with the a couple episodes ago when we were talking about tarot. I was
you were
on a bender about big decks, so.
And tentacles.
Oh, yeah, the tentacle pentacle. Mm-hmm. Or pentacle tentacles, whatever. Yeah, sorry. So sorry, guys. Can't help myself. We are not going to talk about...
It's part of your charm.
We won't talk about anything too perverse today. I'll probably still fit in some jokes.
I mean, isn't that what you're here for?
Yeah, that's like 50% of why I'm here. That's solidly 50%. What are we talking about today, Katie?
We are talking about ADHD and food.
All different things that fall under that food umbrella.
We thought this would be a good episode to do the week before Thanksgiving, just because...
It's like the Jaws music right now. Duh.
Yeah. Between, like, having to negotiate, personalities and family dynamics. And... And, I think oftentimes...
Hustle and bustle.
Yeah, it gets really chaotic. But also, there's a lot of times where, like... Especially if it's not, like, your personal family's Thanksgiving, you go someplace where you kind of feel, like, pressured to try something because somebody made it, and it's like, oh, this is Aunt Jane's, sweet potato casserole, and you have to have it. You have to. And you try. Like, I've always been, like, a big proponent of, like, I will for sure try something.
Oh, definitely.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But, like,
I don't want to say I require people to, but, like, yes, I expect you to give something a taste.
Right. However, if I have tried it in the past and said that's not for me, I will not be... I don't allow myself to be forced to do it. Like, for example, like sweet potato casserole, like, the marshmallows on top creep me the hell out. I can't do it. Just give me mashed sweet potatoes. What's the problem?
Can I tell you how I do mine?
Yeah.
Because I just really love Thanksgiving food. I do part of the dish with marshmallows on top, and I do the other part with, like, a streusel topping with, like, pecans in it. So it's a
like
nice...
brown sugar?
Yeah, if you don't want marshmallows on top, then you have that option also.
That is nice.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so, like, things like that where I'm just like, I don't need it, so...
Yeah, and it's like rich food, heavy food. There's just like the holidays are just such an emphasis on food, traditions, family stuff. I think it's stressful.
Yeah, and there's for sure things at Thanksgiving or this time of year in particular that, like, I only get to have this time of year. So, like, perhaps I overdo it a bit on the mashed potatoes and stuffing with gravy. And if you've been listening to us from the beginning, you know how much I love gravy and all types of potato.
Yeah, if you've listened to our Spudcast.
Yeah, that was on Patreon. We went real deep into the Spudcast.
Oh, man.
But,
we do love potatoes.
Yeah, so, but it's that kind of, like, I'm not going to make stuffing in, July.
Yeah.
So, it's that kind of thing where, like, I get to have these, like, quote-unquote special foods.
Right.
That I'm just not going to have any other time of year. So, I do tend to just, like, go ham on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is between, like, I know I personally tend to feel a little overwhelmed between Thanksgiving and Christmas, just with, like, events going on, and I think there's always, like, invitations to things, and you have the dynamic of, like, COVID always has a flare-up during the holidays, so then it's like, how am I navigating this? Things changing at the last minute, plus the food dynamic, plus, just, like, seeing people, and there's just a lot of things at play, so we thought this was a good time to have a conversation about. I think we're going to have multiple conversations about ADHD and food and diet culture and things like that.
Yeah.
So I would also say at the beginning as like a trigger warning, I think if talking about food is triggering for you or having conversations about this, it might be a good one to skip. We'll try and avoid, I think, eating disorders generally or disordered eating. But in case there is any of that bleeds through, just as a heads up to peeps in case you want to skip this one.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to, make anybody more heightened about that situation if they're already struggling with it.
And we know then what comes with all the holiday food and constantly seeing it in your feed and recipes and ideas is then the flip side of that where you're getting the workout tips and the diet tips.
Right, that just wildly toxic diet culture.
Oh, yeah.
Which we will address those things on our episodes about just our experiences with dieting and diet culture and
which we'll probably do like post holidays.
Yeah, that'll probably be like a New Year's thing, but that'll be much more about like
external pressures that
and like
targeted
how
ads
we've
and
managed to like survive those things and continue to sidestep them, but with that said, I would say, like, maybe take this as your hint to, like, unfollow those kind of toxic diet accounts right now so that you're not inundated with some sort of tea that promises to help you shit your pants before the holidays and lose weight and whatever. Because most of your family, if not all of your family, just doesn't care. Especially, after 2 years of COVID. Holidays I feel like this year will be more normal.
That's what I thought, but they're saying there's also going to be a flu
I'm sure there will be.
So I don't know. Time will tell. Hopefully, I think we'll all keep our fingers crossed for a quiet holiday season. I'm knocking on wood so that I didn't just jinx it. Yeah. Because I'm not stitious at all.
So with that delightful introduction. Hopefully you're not sick of us yet and turned us off.
Please keep listening.
Please pay attention.
This is definitely another instance of dopamine being added again. Yeah. So I think is like a good introduction. I was actually on, and again, heads up, there was a website, I think it's an eating disorder clinic.
Is it Walden something? Or
yeah. They had that great article about ADHD specifically and disordered eating, but they described it as, and I am reading this directly, so a deficiency in the two neurotransmitters, norepinephrine and dopamine, which we talked about in our first episode, but it's come up a bunch of times because there is that dysfunctional relationship between those two. It can lead to issues eating, like poor awareness of cues of hunger and fullness. So not being able to pay attention to those two. And I think that's made worse because a lot of people growing up had like a clear your plate mentality or set meal times, which is also tough when you're trying to follow cues. Like when you're a kid in school, you really can't. It's like eating when you have a scheduled time to eat. Just the opposite of listening to
What was your
cues.
lunchtime in high school? Oops.
Oh my God, there was one year I had like 4th period lunch. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Like even now, I usually don't eat until like 11 or 12.
I think it might have been even in middle school, my lunch period was at like 10:55 a.m.
That's absurd.
And our classes started at 8:55.
Yeah, like what?
Like,
and then you're not done until like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we didn't get dismissed until 3:30.
Yeah, that's
and
nuts.
then yeah, because after school was a 4:05 dismissal.
Yeah.
Why do I have that? What the fuck?
Yeah,
right?
why is your brain hanging on to?
I swear to Christ.
I think we had our like 9th period. It was like a 2:44 or something. It was like when the bell rang, whatever. It's stupid. But anyway, yeah, that's the opposite of listening to your body, having these set meal times that you have no control over. The inability to follow a meal plan. You're like, obviously, emphasis on the word plan. We know how ADHD and planning goes. Inability to judge portion size accurately. Or to, because you have trouble with those cues, know when to slow like a binge. Constantly distracted by thoughts of food, weight, body shape. And there's also, which we'll kind of get into with some of the brain stuff and the nutrition, there is something about ADHD that causes you to crave certain types of like sugary, carby food.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Because our brains, like even neurotypical brains, your brain's always seeking out dopamine. Like it's a survivalist thing, right? So,
and food triggers that.
Correct.
That dopamine response.
And sugary foods in particular trigger that. So things that are just carby, like bread, potatoes. Your brain loves carbohydrates because it's fast energy for your brain. It's the easiest way. So like if you're feeling tired, that's why like a sugary drink or something perks you up short term,
right?
Because it gives your brain that energy that it's craving, because it can quickly turn that into what it needs to get stuff done. But because we're also already lacking in dopamine, we crave those carbs, those sugars more, and we, to an extent, not like kind of need more of them in order to feel more normal, which is what can lead to struggles with food and food intake regulation, because what my brain is telling me that I need more of something that somebody else is perfectly satisfied with stopping. So then and then on top of it, you're getting that sensory and stimulation from it, because you can have something crunchy, you can have something sweet.
Man, I love something crunchy. Crunchy's like my favorite food texture. Crispy. Sweet. I'm sorry. I'm clearly hungry. So go ahead.
It is not lunchtime, to be clear.
No, it's not. And I ate before we started recording.
But so then having that sensory satisfaction also adds to the dopamine rush, which, like, it makes perfect sense with everything else that we've discussed so far. So
yes, I think I definitely started reading about this and I was like, oh.
Yes.
So the one way I saw it described, and I think this was from an Attitude Mag article, it said, in addition to ADHD brains exhibit, in addition to like those other things that we were talking about with the difficulties with self-regulation, ADHD brains exhibit decreased glucose metabolism compared to non-ADHD brains, resulting in less energy available to the attention center in the prefrontal cortex. So then the ADHD brain sends out distress messages saying that it needs glucose to try and get that back in balance. And then that's causing like the craving of the like sugary stuff, carby stuff, because it is such a quick, easy conversion for the body to turn that into glucose.
That makes sense.
And then because you get that glucose, that increases your dopamine and serotonin. So then you have like a sense of pleasure and calm, which then starts that cycle of like then feeling shitty about it because you're like, I wish I didn't eat that, or that's not what I should have eaten, or whatever. So it just creates that loop, and then you feel bad, and then you're like more likely to do the same thing.
Correct. Yeah, which I do mention a little bit later, but like that restriction thing, which like we're all experienced with this. I think especially as millennials.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I've more or less unfollowed all of those like bullshit fitness accounts.
Me too.
But
me too. And you know what? When you unfollow stuff like that, it makes it so much more stark when something like that shows up. I'll have something in my feed. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, literally.
Get out of here. Like, absolutely not. Because it really does. I mean, I think, again, aging myself here, but I still... Hold on. Don't come at me, Gen Z, but I still use Pinterest a lot. And Pinterest is like the worst for that.
Oh, Pinterest is, yeah.
It is a minefield when it comes to things like that.
If you think shit you see on Instagram and TikTok is curated, check out Pinterest. Cause
Pinterest, I'm definitely just fueling some kind of like targeted ad account for myself, but it's just such an easy way to like find ideas and save them and organize
Pinterest
things.
is for sure run by Rick of Rick and Morty, and he uses it as energy for a different teenyverse.
Yeah, I'm definitely powering. I myself alone am powering a teenyverse with my Pinterest. But anyway, yes. So there's definitely reasons for the cravings. There's reasons for the behavior. I mean, I definitely read that list of kind of on the high notes, like what the struggle is due to. And I'm looking at that like a checklist. I'm like, oh my God, these are all things that I have had a hard time with forever. I think as far as nutrition goes, from what I've read, and I've also heard, like, I don't know if it was somebody I know. I think this is like a piece of therapist advice that somebody was given. I don't remember where I heard it from, but it jives with what I read, that protein is like really the key. So protein and water, if you're medicated, help like activate your medication. Mm-hmm. And also are going to keep you, especially like protein is going to keep you full for a long time. A combo of like protein and fiber are really going to keep you like feeling full. And if you're working on paying attention to those hunger cues, those are great, nutritionally great things to seek out to help you feel full.
Yeah, I mean...
And improve focus.
Yes. And I think I found and do find that when I do what my dietitian tells me to do and have a balanced meal...
When I follow the rules that I was given, because I'm such a rule follower.
With like protein and a carb and like 50% of my meal being fruits and vegetables, I tick all of those boxes. I have my sensory satisfaction. I'm getting my sugars. I'm getting protein. I'm getting some fat and oil in there somehow. And hitting all of those boxes so that I have fiber. I'm fuller for longer, and able to, move forward with my day and not get kind of stuck. And I think that was one of the things. There are two things that like stuck out to me where I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was like an ADHD thing.
Yeah, we'll just add that to the list of 10,000 other things we've realized in
literally,
the last 6 months.
But it was, I think it actually might have been Elise Myers, but she said something, she had a reel at some point about her hyperfixation food. And
which we talked about last week.
Correct.
Yeah.
And something about how like, oh, I'm just going to eat this for every meal until I get sick of it and then have to throw it all out and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I do that. And there was something else. I think it was like a dietitian page, but they were like, similar to the dietitian that I go to, where my personal dietitian was like, look, if you want cheesecake, like, you have, like, it was around my birthday last year, and I was like, yeah, I had a cupcake for breakfast, and she was like, okay, did you have a cupcake for lunch and dinner? And I was like, well, I had one with dinner, and she was like, okay, so, like, she's like, if you want the cupcake, have the cupcake, but, also, like, that shouldn't be your only meal, like, that's not the whole meal, is that single thing. And she's like, but otherwise, like, just have it. Because that restriction makes it so much worse. And then, like, found this research about how, like, we, as people with ADHD, like, the restriction is so much more detrimental to us because we're already starved of that dopamine. That when we're restricting it, then when we finally do get to have it, it's like we've artificially programmed our brains to get like a massive dopamine hit from
Which
this
totally
restricted food, right?
Yeah.
So then we do end up kind of like binging on whatever that is, pizza or pasta or whatever the quote unquote bad food is.
Yeah, and we'll try and avoid that too, like good, bad designations with food, which I try and personally do as well to take away that categorization that my brain has from like years of this.
Oh yeah, it's a very active point of unlearning.
Yes, and one of the, like, in those points when they were talking about that continual thoughts of like food, weight, this, like those are, if you haven't listened to Maintenance Phase's episode, I mean Maintenance Phase totally because they have great information, but their episodes that they did a 2-part on calorie restriction, and that and trying not to be dramatic, but completely shifted how I approach food. I was like, man, I've been using calorie counting and restriction for like the better part of 10 years. And it's bad for you long term. Like it ruins your metabolism and how your body can process food, like any restriction does. And
I think that's actually where my body is right now, because I was so, and their episode on Weight Watchers also, or WW.
Yes. Was also excellent.
Just, it infuriated me. Like I was in tears by the end of that episode, just because of how angry I was at what I had done to myself, on the premise that if I just followed those rules, everything would be fine, be quote unquote perfect.
It'll be fixed, and then I don't have to worry about it.
And now my metabolism, like anytime I do like anytime I do any restriction, my body is like, no, we can't do that again. Like, I mean, realistically, it is nothing short of a miracle that I didn't lose my hair and have, absolutely no periods. And I was probably really close to getting to that point, frankly. If I hadn't been on the pill, I don't know that I would have been getting a natural period at that time. Because when I listened to that Weight Watchers episode from Maintenance Phase, I was talking with you about it, but I plugged in. For those who don't know, Weight Watchers uses like a point system instead of counting calories. It is effectively counting calories.
It's the same thing. Yeah, and they just like jazzed it up.
Yeah, they go through different iterations of the program and they revamp it more and more frequently, it seems.
Constantly. And like the point system, so I did Weight Watchers for like a hot minute. And in the like maybe under a year that I was doing it, the point system changed like 3 times.
Yes.
Points plus, and then points this.
And when I started, the first time I did Weight Watchers, I was in like high school because my school sent a letter home telling my mother that I was obese.
Oh, suck every last D.
I was 150 pounds.
Oh my God. Which is probably about what I was in high school. I was probably about
like technically obese according to BMI charts as a 5'4" person, but like looking back, I'm like, that is probably the weight that I was supposed to be. Like I was maintaining that weight. I wasn't changing pant sizes every year like I am currently because I can't figure out where my body is at homeostasis.
It's weird. It's almost like it made me struggle long term.
But the first time I did Weight Watchers, everything had points values, including most vegetables.
Yep.
And a apple and a chocolate chip cookie were both 2 points.
Which is like, what?
It makes sense, though, because it's calorie counting, and both of those things had 100 calories.
Yeah, and calorie counting is one-dimensional, and that it doesn't have to do with nutritionally what's in those calories.
Correct.
It's just staying under a certain barrier.
To that end, Weight Watchers did revamp and basically made most fruits and vegetables 0 points. There are some exceptions like corn and cooked carrots.
People that say to me that carrots are high in carbs, I want to like throw carrots in their face.
Yeah, but like the long carrots with the pointy ends.
Yes, I want a sharp carrot.
Shiv carrot.
I want to sharpen carrots and throw them at you.
It's Veggie Tales plus Kill Bill.
Oh, yeah.
If you like to stab with a carrot.
And also there's no hands. You're just stabbing people without any arms or hands.
Look, I don't make the rules.
You also float and don't have feet.
But yeah, so then there are all these different iterations of Weight Watchers, but I went through after listening to that maintenance phase episode and typed in to like MyFitnessPal or a calorie counting website what I was eating on a daily basis when I was at my lowest weight on Weight Watchers. And what I was eating was less than 1,000 calories a day. And that did not account for walking a 5K every day on my lunch break and running a 5K at least 3 times a week and doing Orange Theory classes 4 times a week where I was burning about 500 calories per class at Orange Theory.
Just with that workout.
So like net, if I was lucky, I was netting maybe 500 calories a day when I was at my lowest weight on Weight Watchers. And I was furious that they were encouraging it.
Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is I think, so calorie counting, I mean, I was doing that independently. So I was just doing it, on my, like with an app on my phone. Weight Watchers, you're in a whole atmosphere of people who are sharing disordered eating tips.
Yes.
And, I mean, really things ultimately that are like kind of scary things, like when you feel hungry. I mean, drinking water instead of eating that's not a tip for somebody. That's dangerous behavior. So yeah, I definitely think that the community aspect of Weight Watchers, as much as some people may have found it effective, ultimately is like very dangerous for people.
It can start being effective, but it very quickly becomes wildly toxic.
Yeah, it devolves.
Yeah, because then you are also, when you're not losing weight, you're sitting in a room with other people who are losing weight and you feel like a failure. And so then it becomes, I was, again, 150 pounds and I was like, man, I'm just not losing weight because my body was like, lady, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so, but I couldn't figure out why I wasn't losing weight. So then I'm in a room with these people who have 100 pounds on me who need to lose weight because their doctors are like, yo, you've got to get this under control.
Right.
And they've got all their tips that are working for them, and they're dangerous tips. They're dangerous tips for anybody. Right. But then as somebody who was already eating in a way that was dangerous, to be adding those tips to my life was it created an environment where everything in my life became toxic. Like, it was nuts.
Yeah, because you can't there's no balance. When you're like, and especially I think ADHD, you're hyper-focused on this one goal. I mean, same thing, like, I think back on, like, calorie counting. I was eating maybe 1,200 calories a day.
And think how much you were exercising, though, at the same time.
Right. I was doing, like, intense strength training 3 days a week for an hour at a shot. I was running on my off days. I was running on the weekends. I was doing 5Ks. I mean, I will say ultimately, like, I did wind up, when you extrapolate it out over the period of time, it did wind up being gradual. And I did get to the point where there was better balance with it, where I'm eating, I don't know what I'm eating because I don't count anymore. But I know that I'm eating significantly more than I used to. I've shifted. I've realized 3 meals a day just, like, isn't a thing that I really like. I don't like eating first thing in the morning. And so now I'm trying to eat when I'm hungry, as opposed to eating first thing in the morning when I get up, which is what I used to do, because I was still stuck in that set meal time. So this is definitely...
So the exercise thing is a way to get dopamine. So it makes sense that you were stuck. Yes, because you weren't getting dopamine from eating food. You were getting it from exercise.
Yes.
So it's so easy for people with ADHD to end up with an unhealthy relationship with food and exercise.
Either way.
Yes.
Whether it's too much, too little.
Correct.
Too much of one, not enough of the other.
Yeah. So it's very frustrating.
Yes. So just another point when we were talking about nutrition, specifically, one thing we mentioned, protein and fiber are definite yes, definite no. And again, not trying to make things good or bad, but food coloring, especially red and yellow. There was research done. There was a 2021 report from the state of California. And it says the research indicates that they were looking at kids, but kids who consume synthetic food dyes, and then they listed off, it's like red dye 40 and like something else. Depletion of minerals that play a role in growth and development, including zinc and iron, changes chemically in the brain, and hypersensitivity, which can cause like allergic reactions and inflammation. But those are specifically, it's like red dye 40 and something else, which I don't have in here. Impact focus and like the way your brain communicates.
Okay.
So I thought that was really interesting and like maybe a good thing to keep in mind when you're grocery shopping or whatever it is, because they sneak food coloring into a lot of stuff. So yeah, I thought that was, and I mean, you know, eat what you want, and when you're hungry.
I think that's the key, is like figuring out what hunger feels like, and then
yes, I think I would say that's the core point.
Honoring that hunger and saying like, I feel hungry, so I'm going to eat, and end of story. Like, and I had one of my notes somewhere was like, eating something is always better than eating nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not about eating the perfect thing. And, you know, it's not, you know, nourishing your body and honoring that hunger and honoring that your brain is telling you that you're hungry and that it needs some food. Okay, so I'll give you food. I'm not going to withhold that from you.
Right.
Because, you know, I think my brain is a bad person or whatever.
Right. And like, this is flawed thinking and there's something wrong with me for wanting this or thinking this or craving this.
Right.
I think ADHD also causes a lot of like fixations on food and picky eating. You know, finding a safe food or a comfort food. Obviously, we talked about the hyperfixations and like eating it over and over and over.
Yeah. I mean, my brother had that a lot as a kid. Like, we ate chicken nuggets and baby carrots and like French fries, like all the time, like almost every night as a kid, when especially like when my brother was in elementary school and like early middle school, all the time. That's all we had. Yeah. Like, and it was that was what he wanted to eat. All right. He dipped his carrots in ketchup, which was psychotic.
Yeah, I don't love that. Probably not my first choice.
It was not. Meanwhile, yeah, I was like, if my carrots touch that ketchup, I will scream.
Or ranch. Katie also really hates ranch.
Ranch dressing can go sit on a train track and wait for death, because fuck ranch dressing. Ranch dressing and pickles and olives, come for me, guys. I don't care. I will die on this hill. They're all an abomination. They know what they did.
So I think there's also an aspect of indecision. I think I struggle with that sometimes. You know, where it's, I want something to eat and I'm hungry, but I'm either too tired to make something, or I don't know what I want, or you get decision fatigue and you just like can't make a call.
Yes. Which is where that like kind of meal planning idea comes in, I think, to have some stuff that's like ready made, so that that decision has already been made, so you don't need to like. So
I have a very long list of coping tools.
I was gonna say I have all of this stuff kind of mentioned within my coping
like
tab.
Just not verbal diarrhea, but I was just like, there's no organization to it. I was just typing things as I was thinking of them. Meal prepping, I know it's tough. I go through phases where I'm like really good with it. Again, part of it, I think, for me is that I was doing it so much when I was calorie counting. I would spend an entire Sunday buying all the food, measuring everything out, and I would do it for me and my spouse. So I was making like 10 breakfasts, 10 lunches every Sunday, and then cleaning up from it. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Measuring everything out and calculating
it's the measuring and weighing that I can't believe I spent so much time doing.
Like all of this brain power the minimal brain power that I had from being underfed
seriously,
and overexercised, all of that was just going to meal prepping and counting.
And like it has to be 4 ounces of chicken breast and 4 ounces of rice.
5 ounces is this many calories. I can't, if I extrapolate that out over the week, it's too many. It's just.
Oh my God. I mean, I just can't.
So meal prepping is like a real hit or miss for me. Sometimes I'll do it.
I do better at kind of, it's like ADHD meal prepping where I have the components for things.
Yeah.
So like, it's not necessarily that I have like I will, if I cook dinner and I have leftovers, I do immediately portion that into things. Like I'll just split it up.
Yeah, that's usually how I do it
so
too.
that I don't have like a vat of soup that I have to like then portion out or something. But I'm not sitting there like weighing and measuring it. I just fill up the Tupperware thing.
I'm like, what's about what I would eat for dinner? Yeah, that's about what I would eat for dinner.
Correct.
But or I'll do a small one and a big one, like one for a lunch and one for a dinner or something like that.
But I do have a lot of like ready to go things like the frozen chicken tenders and I mean frozen vegetables are a godsend, frankly.
And fruit. Yep. Both of those. Yep.
And so like having those things just like in my kind of like standing pantry list.
Yes.
Like I have some cereal if I'm like sort of hungry but don't really know what I want for dinner. I'll have a bowl of cereal or two. Having canned fruit around is also really helpful if it's packed in 100% juice. I don't like
I have a hard time with like canned. I don't know what
I can only do
it's
canned
like a mental
fruit.
thing.
I can't do canned vegetables, but
I
can do canned fruit as long as it's in 100% juice. I can't do it in syrup or water that's been sweetened.
Yeah. I usually go with frozen stuff, like if I'm going to get something that's like shelf stable like that. Not really shelf stable, but like longer term. I know that one of the things that I go to a lot as like a default is I always have protein powder and like frozen fruit and vegetables. And I'll put like oatmeal in a smoothie and spinach in a smoothie, like any greens I can get in. I try and approach things from like because I do have a tendency to not eat a lot during the day, and that's like very common, and then eating a lot at night. And I just fought that for so long and I'm just trying to work around it now. So I just do like light nutrient dense during the day. And then I try and just give myself not free range, but like flexibility in the evening where I'm really eating more what I want instead of like what I should be eating. So I do a lot of like the smoothies with protein powder. I do a lot of oatmeal and apples, like apples, peanut butter, oatmeal. I can make a lot of different things with those. And they're things that can sit for, apples have a long shelf life. Peanut butter, I probably eat my body weight in peanut butter on a weekly basis. I put it in oatmeal. Everything. It goes in everything.
I mean, once I finally got those mason jars and was doing overnight oats, like I'll get on. And my thing is like I do kind of like hyper focus on food. So I'll have like a kick where I'm doing overnight oats for weeks on end. And then I find myself, because I also can't eat usually as soon as I wake up. I've gotten a little bit better at it, where maybe I'll have like some toast at home and then have breakfast at the office. But I will find myself bringing like the overnight oats into the office like 3 days in a row and just not eating it. And when that happens, that's when I'm like, okay, now I need a different breakfast. Yeah. And like sometimes that different breakfast is a bagel. Like, and I just get bagels and it's okay, guys.
There's like frozen waffles is another one. Like I'll get that and put like peanut butter and apples on it or banana. I do that a lot. I try and also always have stuff that is pretty simple, that doesn't involve a ton of prep, a ton of cleanup.
Yeah.
I do sometimes also like go all in. I'll like make this great meal and then I don't even want to eat it.
But I do think that there is something where I saw something from one of the ADHD dietitian accounts, which some of the ones that we follow on our account page are in the show notes for today, but they said something like having those ready-made options available to mix in with fresh and like fresh components is so critical for people with ADHD so that you don't get so overwhelmed by like that indecisiveness or that decision fatigue.
What helps me a lot with that, and I've realized over time, if you say to me like, what do you want? I can't decide, but I am really resourceful when it comes to, okay, I have these 3 random items and I can make a dinner out of that.
Yes, I do.
So I do much better working with what I have. So we have like mostly a standing list that we get pretty much the same stuff. There's obviously variations.
And I do that with PK a lot, even if he's like, well, tell me what you want for dinner. And I was like, well, give me 2 options of where you want to order from, and then I'll tell you what I want for dinner. Mm-hmm. Or give me 2 options of what you want to make, or 3 options of what you want to make, and then I'll tell you which one of those I want.
Yeah.
But just, like, leaving it completely open is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's very overwhelming to me, even, like, on Pinterest, when I find a recipe where I'm like, oh, that looks good. And then I look at the ingredient list, and I'm like, even if it's just, like, a listing of the seasonings, it is so overwhelming to me, like... One of the things...
Which is very common.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say Skinny Taste has some great recipes.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I really love about the way that she structures her recipes is that she breaks it down into, like, okay, this is for, like, the main meal. These are the ingredients for the sauce. Or these are the ingredients for the casserole part. Or... whatever. So it's a lot easier to be like, okay, well, I'm only going to make this part of the thing. Like, the sauce part, I can finagle whichever way I want
Those are great, like, easily approached meals with generally very easy to get ingredients that don't involve crazy prep.
That's a good point. Yeah. Just to say it again, that was Skinny Taste. And then the other one I really like is Half Baked Harvest, which I've sent you a bunch of their recipes recently.
There's some good ones on there.
Yeah.
What was the other thing I was going to say? Long shelf life. Did we talk about long shelf life items?
Yeah. Because you said you didn't like canned stuff.
Yeah. So I'll do a lot of, like, potatoes, onions, apples, squash, oatmeal.
Keeping also, like nuts and stuff in my drawer at work is a really great way for me to, like, get that crunchy stimulus.
Yep. Salty.
But it's salty, but you also get fat and protein, which... Fat is also a quick food for your brain. So it's a great way because I do find that, especially now, I think I've noticed it more just kind of being in it and, like, researching this, but also since being medicated, I do notice that, like, if I'm starting to really lose focus at work, it's because I haven't eaten.
Yes. I noticed, like, man, I felt like shit yesterday. I'm like, you haven't had any water. What are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. I get home and I'm like, ugh, why is my mouth... Ugh,
yeah, why do I feel so dry? Could it possibly be? One thing that I am working on is I want to have a list of, like, go-to weeknight meals for myself, or for us, because I do have a tendency to, like, make something a bunch and then not make it for a while. I know, like, pizza and salad is, like, a big go-to where we'll throw together a pizza and...
I love having pieces of cut up pizza on top of a salad.
Or my salad on top of my pizza. I also love.
Mixing those together is so much, here's a hot tip, so much less overwhelming.
Yes.
Than being like, okay, if I have pizza, I'm a piece of shit. Salad, because I don't have any vegetables. Well, just mix them together, guys. Pizza becomes your croutons.
And
solved.
If you have a hard time with, like, I know sometimes people will joke like, oh, I bought all this romaine and it's just, like, rotting in my fridge. If you get kale... Kale has a longer shelf life, and if you take the kale and put it in a bowl and put a little bit of salt and, like, scrunch it up and let it sit for a little bit, it softens it and it's way more palatable.
Oh, really?
So it makes it where you can eat it and it's softer to eat and it's not quite so... Because I used to feel like I was eating
rinse it after you put the salt on it, or...?
No, because it's just, like, a little bit of salt. Oh, okay. You're just, like, lightly salting it and scrunching it up, and it makes it so much more easy. Because I used to feel like I was chewing a newspaper when I ate kale. I used to hate kale.
I like that feeling, personally.
I prefer to eat paper.
I like to feel like a cow with a piece of cud.
Yeah.
I just want to chew it, like, 9 million times.
I like
My gallbladder really likes the extra need for bile to break down the food that I eat.
Your gallbladder's like, please.
Effectively
no
tree
more
bark.
Paper.
Why do I live in a goat?
So I would say, like, smoothies, toast with, like, peanut butter on it, or a waffle with peanut butter, or, like, some kind of, like, oatmeal. That's one I do a lot. I'll buy... like whole wheat pitas and put hummus and, like, vegetables on it, and I'll have that for
you made
dinner.
that for us over the summer. That was delicious.
And I'll do that with, like, roasted potatoes for dinner and, like, a salad or something like that. I try and use that nutritional thing in my brain too. I'm like, let me just hit everything I need to hit. So I'll get like a little bit of fat, I'll get a little bit of protein, like a complex carb, this.
I know that your spouse calls them garbage bowls, but the, like, Bob Evans pre-mashed potatoes with, like, we were just talking the other day, I do the roasted, like, in the air fryer, Brussels sprouts, and I spray them with olive oil, but then I toss them with the dry packet of Italian dressing mix. It's like on the top shelf of the aisle.
It's that yellow box.
Yeah. I think it's Four Seasons or something is the brand, or Seasons.
I don't remember.
But yeah, it's a yellow box. It's like yellow and then in a yellow border and then a black inside. But yeah, sprinkle that on top and then roast them in that. And it is like the perfect amount of like seasoning and kick. They're not gluten-free. So like if you can't have gluten, I'm sorry. But doing that with the mashed potatoes and like either my frozen chicken tenders, you can do those pea protein ones are delicious. Those
there's like a handful of different like chicken substitutes that we'll buy, because I don't do a ton of meat replacements. I tend to just do vegetables, but there are times where I'm like, I need something else.
Yeah.
And we do those like chicken subs with the Brussels sprouts on. There's these like microwave bags of quinoa that have vegetables in them. So we'll go to the grocery store and buy a whole bunch of those and just throw them in the freezer so that we always have something, that if I don't have anything, I pretty much always have potatoes. So I can, and I think the air fryer has also been like really helpful for, I love roasted vegetables. That's probably 95% of what I subsist on a weekly, that and peanut butter. And roasting them in the oven takes a really long time.
It takes forever.
And I like mine really, really, really heavily roasted. So it just takes a super long time. So I can cut my time like a third.
Oh yeah.
Or 2/3.
Yeah.
And throw something in the air fryer and still have dinner like in a super quick period of time. So we do like quinoa bowls with Brussels sprouts and potatoes.
Yeah. Air fryer has been a game changer because everything's done within like 30 minutes.
Yes. That, and we got, we have like one of those ninja smoothie things. Those two things I think have made it where either one of us, if we have, because we both have ADHD, having like that decision fatigue or not having a lot of time and having to throw something together, like makes it where you can pretty much always make something for yourself. Where you're not like beating yourself up like, man, I wish I had this instead of this. Like, I know I can throw together something that's like nutrient dense and also like good brain food real quick.
For sure. Yeah.
Or scrambled eggs and toast. I can't tell you how many times we've done that for dinner because I'm like, I don't know what to make and we have eggs and bread. So
I just had also written down here, which I thought was worth mentioning, the like types of hunger cues.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So I know that I mentioned like if I can't focus, but this list includes fatigue, poor focus, headache, unease, or like feeling off, irritability.
Interesting.
Irritability or cold sweats / like shaky might be a hint that you need to get some food in your system.
I have a great example of a meltdown that happened.
You?
Yes. So we were on a trip, and this always happens to us on a trip. You get going in the morning, and I'm like, I don't want to waste any time. I just want to like go, 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 go. Okay, so we did that.
Impulsivity.
Yes, and I had coffee in my tum.
Good.
That was it. So a cappuccino and on the run, and it hits like 11:30.
Oh boy. And
I was starting to feel hungry, and I was like, hey, food should be on our radar. We should probably be looking for something to eat. And then, weirdly enough, both of us got distracted.
Huh.
So we went back to where we were staying, and it was like one of those, like, we'll freshen up, we'll go out, we'll find lunch.
Oh boy.
Great.
Nope.
So we're freshening up, and it was one of those, like, we're on vacation. Do you want a beer? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Vacation. Grave error. Empty stomach. I might have had, like, and I don't exaggerate when I say this, like a cracker while I ate my beer.
Yeah.
Drank my beer. Although at this point it really was like eating a beer because I chugged it because I was hungry.
This is that bullshit from high school where they're like, actually you should have beer in your Cheerios instead of milk because it's better for you.
Who said that?
You've never heard that rumor?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Is this like Marilyn Manson removing one of his ribs to give himself a blowjob? Is that what this...
Yeah, I think it was like that. It was something about like the nutritional content of beer is more than... Yeah, it was like some bullshit like that where like somebody was like, well, actually... And was like, okay, Corey. You know he was named Corey.
Yeah.
I can't remember anybody's name, but it feels like a Corey
but
thing to say.
I can just sense it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a big beer, and then we went out to find a place to eat, and there was a language barrier because we didn't speak the language. We were also in a place that had a very heavy...
I thought you meant you had a language barrier with your spouse.
I practically did because I was so hungry I couldn't even think straight. So then you're going from place to place. It was hot. It was super crowded, so there was just a lot of noise. Like, I was overstimulated. We had been in a city with a lot of noise all day, and now we're at, like, peak busy time, tons of activity, trying to read menus in another language, and trying to determine what on the menu has meat and what doesn't. We had also had 2 meals in a row of pizza. So I was offered pizza multiple times, and my brain was like, absolutely not, I don't want pizza.
Which isn't unreasonable on its face. It just, in context of
when you're
having
like
a cracker and coffee and beer all day.
And you're in that mode where,
because
you're so hungry, at that point, I'm overstimulated, I'm so hungry, my brain is, like, not working.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to read these things, and it's like the letters are just, like, floating on the page. Like, there's just nothing going in my head. We wound up having to walk a good additional mile and we found like a vegetarian specific place that had great food. Because of the language barrier, there was a miscommunication. So the 2 meals that we ordered, we got 2 of the same thing. We only got 1 of those. So we had to split it. But even then, I got that with like a smoothie, and it was just like getting nutrients into my body. And then it was like a turnaround. Then I could be a human again. But in the meantime, I was a swamp monster to deal with.
I bet. And I have told, like, I warned PK shortly after we met where I was like, if I tell you, hey, I'm getting hungry, that is not a joke.
No, we've got like T-minus 20 minutes to...
Yeah, that is me telling you, make a fucking decision.
Yeah.
If you're not hungry, that's cool, but I need to be where food is available to me.
Yes.
In time.
Yeah.
For me to not have a nervous breakdown.
And I didn't, I really used to, I think when I was younger, I was a little bit more accustomed to restricting things like that, where I could operate on an empty stomach. And I'm just at the point now where, in addition to like trying to pay more attention to hunger cues and to have a better relationship with food, like a more stable relationship, I just can't function like that anymore.
Yeah, it's not worth it to me.
And I didn't realize it until really that happened. I was like, wow, my brain stopped working. Like, I just couldn't even think. I was just so hungry and so tired, and like had alcohol and caffeine, but not food. Can't do it. Not in my 20s anymore. Can't handle it.
Yeah.
Also, not good for my body that I'm walking miles around a city and not eating anything.
Yeah, that happened actually like last Christmas. We were visiting with PK's mother and stepdad, and we left their place, and we had intended, once we left their place, we intended to get pizza and like veg out the rest of the day. And it was around Christmas. It wasn't on Christmas that I was making a pizza place be open, but we left there, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty hungry. So like we figured out where we were going to order from, and we ordered it and went to pick it up. And it was like something with like the motion of the car, but I was just like, he was talking about something, and I couldn't tell you what he was talking about because I was...
Were you in the back seat?
No.
Okay, because I struggle with that when I'm in the back seat.
But it was just like, I was just really hungry. We went over there, and we ended up spending like 3 hours there, which I wasn't expecting. So then, like, we went over there at like 11, so I'm thinking, okay, like 12:30 we'll eat. We didn't eat until like 3:30. And so same thing where I was like, I'm not built for this kind of restriction anymore.
I'm gonna die.
So we finally got food, and I was like, oh my God. And so we got back to his place, and we're eating, and I was like, I'm not kidding. I had such a throbbing headache. Like, holy
fatigue,
shit. Yeah.
Like grumpy. Can't tolerate anything. Can't process anything.
I was for sure at that point where I was like, the most minor of inconveniences, I would have not been able to control my facial reactions at the very least. Yeah. I was able to control my words at that point, but my face was not under my jurisdiction anymore.
I did read something, and this is like unverified because I don't have the statistic like handy, but one of the like dietitian pages that I follow, they said something about like your brain needing, I want to say it's like somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 150 grams of carbohydrates a day to function.
Yeah.
Just as like a base level. So when you think about the restrictions of like carbohydrates specifically, and I think, you know, ADHD with trouble modulating, and the like, me personally, I would give up every cake for the rest of my life if it meant I could eat my body weight in bread, because crusty bread, it just doesn't stand a chance. Like, I'll just crush it.
Yeah, with some dipping oil.
Ugh, it's just like the best when it's warm, or like something spread on it that gets a little melty. It's just the best thing. Good. I don't really have a sweet tooth. I have like a carby.
Yeah, my mom used to call me the carb queen as a kid.
I mean, I will gladly take that crown if it's made of bread.
Yeah.
Give me a nice braided bread crown.
And she even said, she was like, oh, I was the same age, or same as you when I was your age. Like, go figure.
Turns out it's like an ADHD thing.
Turns out we've got a dopamine deficiency.
So also, don't restrict your carbohydrates, because your brain needs them.
Yeah, like, truly, honor what your body needs.
Yeah.
And
low carb diets will have you not pooping and not thinking.
Yeah. I mean, like, do you, but also, you know, actually working with a registered dietitian is critical. If you have questions, not taking, and I understand, like, not everybody's insurance covers that or whatever.
Right.
But, you know,
there's also, I think, more availability with the internet and accessibility to that information as far as like dietitians and
just make sure that you're actually following a registered dietitian, not a like self-proclaimed nutritionist or nutrition coach or whatever
an
influencer,
RD, registered dietitian,
whatever influencer title they're giving themselves is really critical to, you know, kind of take a step back and say, like, okay, is this somebody that I could tell my general physician about, and that they would also say, like, okay, that's useful information. Let me tell you about it or whatever. I think is probably a good metric. Like, if I would feel comfortable mentioning this person to my actual doctor, then that's probably decent.
That's on my list of like things to do in the new year, is start seeing a dietitian, just for like a check-in, just for like somebody to like give me a little bit of guidance or give me some tools to help me make good decisions.
It's very helpful. I need to make an appointment because mine's finally back from maternity leave. Because it's nice. It's, you know, it's validating.
Yes.
To understand, like, to work with somebody who understands that, like, life happens and you're going to have cake for breakfast sometimes. And like my dietitian, like, she's told me, she's like, yeah, I've had nachos for breakfast before.
Yep. I've had cold pizza standing over the kitchen sink.
She's like, you know, it is what it is. She's like, and I mean, she's healthy and she's fit and active, but she's not a stick figure. That's not her. And she said, she's like, it's just not my body type. It's not how it's going to be.
Which I think is also something that has taken a long time to kind of come to grips with. Like, I mean, even if I'm working out a bunch and I'm like at my leanest, my shape is still going to be the same. Like, I'm still going to be heavier in certain parts of my body than I am in others. So it's also accepting that whole dynamic that you have and working with it instead of against it, which I think is so many of these ADHD tips that we talk about, is stop trying to swim against the stream.
Yes.
And do what works for you instead of what your either neurotypical friends are doing, or what people are telling you should be doing, or what you're seeing from different influencers online. Like, you just find what works for you. Like, for me, having frozen veggies and fruit in my freezer means I can throw together a smoothie, and that puts me at ease because I know there's less decisions I have to make in the future.
Totally.
If I have that available to me.
Yeah. For me, it's having a couple boxes of Kraft mac and cheese in my cabinet.
The Annie's mac and cheese, the white cheddar with the little shells. Oh, actually, you know what? That's another good one.
I like
throw
the Kraft
veggies
shapes.
in that.
Yes. I do that with the Panera mac and cheese, like the ready-made stuff.
Yep.
I'll put my roasted Brussels sprouts in that, and
or I'll roast like broccoli and throw it in there. Yep. Throw it in the air fryer.
Exactly.
Throw it on top of that, and it takes like 5 minutes. And you've got like something that is going to be so satisfying, but also you're still getting some vegetables, and it's great.
Right, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. And that's the thing, like adding in those components to things that work for you is critical. So for, Thanksgiving next week.
Oh my God, I'm stressed just thinking about it. Don't be like me.
Yeah, just like enjoy your food. Try not to be too hard on yourself about it. And, make sure that you take some time to like, spend some time in nature or go for like a little walk so that you can reset.
I do like to do that the morning of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Side note, I have run a turkey trot the morning of Thanksgiving, and it's a terrible decision and doesn't work for me. Speaking of things that don't work for me.
My mom and I did that the year that it was like -10.
Oh my God.
We were so cold.
It was, I did it one year and it was just like really cold, and the whole time I was like, I used to run on an empty stomach.
Yep.
Because I thought I would burn more fat that way.
Yeah,
so
fasted cardio.
Fasted cardio, like up until like not fairly recently, but in the last couple of years. I mean, I was still doing that on the regular, like running in the heat with nothing in my stomach.
Oh yeah, I gave myself a heat stroke once when I was at my lowest weight by accident because I was running 10 miles in preparation for a half marathon.
Yeah,
and it was like 90 degrees outside.
Yeah,
and couldn't get up the stairs in my apartment that was on the second floor. Like, had to stop halfway up my stairs.
You know what else I realized now that you say that? I also was in this mindset of I can only drink water. I can't drink anything that has anything in it because all I should be drinking is like water and coffee. And I realized this past summer that if I get like a electrolyte mix and put it in my water when it's super hot outside and I go for a long walk, that I don't feel like I'm dead after because my brain equated a good workout with sweating my whole ass off and being completely wiped out afterwards, and it turns out that is totally not necessary.
Yeah, it turns out I feel actually way better if I just go for a walk with some fresh air.
Yep. Or eat something.
Yeah, throw on a podcast and just have my thoughts.
Even recently, I ate like a full meal and then worked out a few hours later, and I couldn't believe the difference because I was so used to working out with like minimal stuff in my stomach. I was like, wow, I actually had like power behind what I was doing instead of flopping around and begging for it to end. I felt like I could do it and that I wasn't wiped out after. So
for sure.
The moral of the story, again, in addition to finding what works for you, is eat when you're hungry.
Eat when you're hungry. Enjoy those leftovers. Go for a walk on Black Friday, too.
And also, it has recently been debunked that because coffee is a diuretic, it dehydrates you. So feel free to drink coffee if you need to drink coffee or tea. They are not going to dehydrate you.
Yeah, I feel like I can feel myself getting big into tea this winter. I know that's my next hyperfixation. I can tell.
Love tea.
I thought about it on the way over. I was like...
Trader Joe's has an autumn harvest tea. I'm going to give you some before you leave. It's delicious.
Oh, okay.
It's so good.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I love tea.
I did ask PK to get me a tea kettle for Christmas for my stove.
Yeah.
Because it just does taste so much better than microwave cup of water.
Yeah, I can't.
It doesn't, like, that's how I've operated this whole time. It's not the end of the world, but...
Yeah, I can't.
I'm just at the point now where I'm like, you know what? I'd like a kettle.
Mine whistles, too, which, ADHD thing, I will forget that it's on the stove if it doesn't whistle.
For sure.
So, a whistling kettle is also a good safety tip, I guess, for ADHD. Don't almost burn your house down.
Yeah.
And get a whistling kettle.
Also, speaking of, this comes out the week before Thanksgiving, but next week we won't have a regular content episode for you guys. We're taking a week off to enjoy time with our families and not get too overwhelmed for the holidays. So we will, though, be releasing a special Patreon-only exclusive episode instead on our normal feed, so you'll get a peek into the kind of madness that is our Patreon episodes.
That's really a good word for it. Yeah,
it's an older episode, so you'll maybe get some more references from some of our older regular episodes that we've made reference to, but hopefully you enjoy it and it inspires you to join our Patreon.
Which become a toe ring or an anklet or a limbo champion.
Christ.
I couldn't remember what it was. I thought Katie was going to help me out.
Batteries were like, running out.
She's like, nope, I'm just going to let her do it on her own. Just go ahead, just do it on her own. What is it, Limbo Champion?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, so ultimately...
You were correct. You were getting there. I was just like, spit it out.
I couldn't remember anymore. Something about working memory, I don't know.
Yes, so the anklet level and the limbo champion level get access to these episodes on our Patreon for $5 or $10 a month respectively, and toe rings get high fives if you happen to know us or see us in person, and
after we hiss, because that's always going to be the first one, we'll hiss and then high five.
Well, Garrett will for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
She's gonna hiss like a sloth, and but toe rings get high fives, and you still get access to your monthly horoscope as a toe ring, but the other levels get a lot more benefits. So if you like what you hear on Thanksgiving week, give us a little subscriberoo on Patreon, and you'll get a lot more of that.
It's us without any agenda, and it's just all gravy all the time. Only gravy trains allowed in Patreon.
Yeah, all gravy all the time, all sloths all the time.
Ugh. Their toe fingers, ew, and like the nails. Ugh. No, can't even. I'm falling down a. Nope.
Yeah, just thinking about it. You're grossing yourself out.
I know, I can't help
like,
it.
On purpose, almost, it seems.
I'm hyper-focusing on... It's like, don't think about pink elephants, and then all you can think about is pink elephants. That's what's happening right now. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode, talking about some food things. We'll definitely do some diet culture talk post-holidays.
And at the very least, we hope that going into the start of hibernation season, you are getting able to surround yourself with people that matter to you.
Yeah, center yourself a little bit before we hit that very long, dark winter, which we will talk about seasonal affective also.
Yeah, Garrett's very affected by it.
Yes. I am.
You couldn't tell.
I am extra seasonally affected. So we'll talk about that also post-holidays. And if, obviously, as always, if there's anything you want us to talk about, touch on, cover, mention, let us know.
Yeah, shoot us an email, or there's a form on our website. And yeah, other than that, we will be back with you in December.
Ooh, God.
I know.
I can't believe it's like this late in the year already.
I know.
So remember, be kind to yourself, because the bar is ankle high, but also just do it because...
Eat potatoes.
Eat potatoes, be nice, and just eat when you're hungry. And drink water.
Yeah.
And drink coffee, because it also hydrates you.
Just those 4 or 5 or 9 things.
And get a whistling kettle. And Google a frenulum.
Christ almighty, Garrett.
Oh, God. Okay.
Bye. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with a brand new episode to delight your brain juices. In the meantime, the best way to support us is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast streaming platform. You can keep up with us during the week on Instagram and Facebook at The Bar is Ankle High, and on Twitter at Ankle High Pod. If you want even more ankle high hot takes in your life and have a few dollars to spare, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarIsAnkleHigh. We post bonus episodes there full of our karaoke attempts, Am I the Asshole discussions, and wondering how we even managed to survive this long. Patreon subscribers also get exclusive access to our secret Patreon-only Facebook group and get added to our close friends list on Instagram. Until next week, remember to be kind to yourself, because the bar is ankle high.